Hey,
Welcome to Behind the Scare.
all right, thanks. I'm
We,
I'm
we've been
excited to be
spouting off
here.
about this for a while. So here we are. We finally arrived, episode one.
Yes, it's good. I'm loving the themes all around. I mean, this is horrifying. I need to keep my head on a swivel or something, I fear.
Well, you need to have some dead musicians behind you. None of this Billy Joel. I mean, he's still alive. There we go. Okay, got it. Michael's
Go
making an
once.
appearance. Rest in
Yes.
peace, Michael.
Yes.
So
Yes.
here we go. Now I'm in Ohio. You're obviously in Florida. Still probably 90 degrees there. It actually feels like October here.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I think
Good.
we struggled to get out of the 60s the other day, which is really nice because it's been disgustingly hot and humid since June. We went
Yeah.
straight from March weather to August weather overnight, and it just stuck with us. And it has been very pleasant. Pumpkins are starting to pop out at for sale, which I don't know what you're going to do with a pumpkin that's going to stay good through August through the end of October. But
No.
yeah, whatever it is. But hey, here we are, episode one.
All right. So, episode 1 we have on a very special guest, of course. A legend in life, but
Just
also
just like a
especially
ghost coming back from the dead.
yeah, that's right. Mr. Don Helbig will be returning
Rising
to the
up.
show, like the Phoenix, to talk a little bit
Yeah,
about his history in the scaring parts of the theme parks. Don, how's it going?
It's going very well. And, David, you're right. Here, in Southwest Ohio, it certainly feels like October right now.
it feels great. I love it.
Nice.
I broke out the sweatshirt for the first time yesterday.
Oh, it's a big step.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
So Don, and I have this feeling that I had the recording we did the other day. My internet was doing great because I'm speaking, and you guys kind of have that look on your face, like, is he talking? Back to the problems with the internet again. Don't know what that issue is, but anyway, it's great when it works. Don, you've worked in the attractions industry for a lot of years, and even before that, you're always involved in it. And you happen to work for Kings Island, Cedar Fair, well,
Mhm.
Legacy Cedar Fair Park. Did you work there when Paramount still owned it, or did you come there along after Cedar Fair?
I came after the acquisition, so I
Okay,
came in 2007. So it was kind of, they bought it, midsummer in 2006. Cedar Fair did, and then it was a lot of, I guess, we'll call it some house cleaning, some changes and things that they did, and I was able to become involved with them at the right time in 2007, and it was a great opportunity. And the park in those early years, Kings Island, accomplished a lot of things. A lot of able to push the envelope with a lot of things, and the Halloween season was one of those.
Yeah.
so you were not part of any part of Fear Fest, as it was called
No.
back then. So your first year was the first year of Haunt, correct?
Right. It was going to be Fear Fest, and we had already, I'd written the press release, I distributed the press release, all the different assets and what all the different mazes were going to be. Went out, around this time in 2007, and then a few days later, we were notified that the decision had been made to elevate the experience and make it Halloween Haunt. Knott's
Mm.
Berry Farm, really the granddaddy of all these, the theme park Halloween events. They'd had such a successful run with Halloween Haunt. So the decision was made to elevate the experience at Kings Island. So when I, first started there in 2007, getting into the fall, that's what the event was.
Wow.
So now, when they made the shift from Fear Fest to Halloween Hunt, I mean, behind the scare, this is you're going from one event to a completely different event, different experience. What was that whole transition like?
Well, the
Because I'm assuming
transition,
that,
well, yeah, the transition was going to be to make it, edgier, more immersive.
Uh,
Nothing was going to be off limits, so it was more blood, more terror, more gore. That's what they wanted to do, and open up more rides and just make it, kind of find a way to make it the premier event, in Southwest Ohio when it came to Halloween. And some of the mazes became a little bit more, edgy, a little more controversial. They wanted that at the time. They wanted people, upset that it wasn't the same Kings Island they were used to. They wanted to create that, they felt if everybody went home happy, they didn't do a good job. So what can we do that's going to, bother people? And mazes came out, like Club Blood was one of them. That was pretty controversial. The outfits and costumes that the scare actors had, was not a family friendly type of a situation. A show called Dead Awakening debuted in the Showplace Theater. We had a media preview night that night. I was dressed up as kind of like an undertaker for the event. And I'm upstairs in the International Restaurant and, talking with all the media and that. And my boss from the marketing department, came upstairs a couple hours into the event. And he said, "We need you down at guest services." People are outraged about the Dead Awakening show. People were angry. They couldn't believe
what was the gist of the Dead Awakening show?
It was just, just more about the costumes that they were wearing, not a lot of clothing. Some of them, let's just go with that.
Oh,
And, was definitely not geared for families. But it was exactly what, Cedar Fair wanted, was something like
Yeah.
Knott's had, at Knott's Berry Farm, that would have been normal, but for Kings Island, Midwest, families are now, always Kings Island. It was just something that, 5-10 minutes into the show, people are, getting up, they're leaving, they're going to pray to guest services. So I'm dressed up like an undertaker talking to everybody, just saying that, all the stipulations said, that, nothing was off limits, that this was going to be edgier this year, and that, parental discretion was advised, and we clearly put that on everything, the park guide, the website, front gate, was said before every show, that parental discretion was advised. But it really kind of set a tone, and in a way, put Kings Island on the map when it came to Halloween. Fear Fest was good, but it wasn't something that everybody, was talking about. It just came, it's something that you could do with your season pass, or, something to do in the fall, but it wasn't that type of an event, in the area that was, getting a lot of attention. So, Halloween Hunt certainly did that. The news media picked up real quick that this was not, Fear Fest anymore, that it was certainly an elevated experience, and how controversial it was. And that, so we, and the way that Cedar Fair saw that was, this is good. People are talking about it. That's what we want, and there were people at the park not comfortable with it, because that wasn't who and what, the park had always been. And then there were others that, didn't work there for years. They were only been there, a year, 2, 3 years. And, they all thought, this is great. This is what we need to do.
Mm-hmm.
So it was kind of, a mixed bag there. But the more people talked about it, the more people wanted to check this out and just see why everybody's so upset. So it worked to the park's advantage.
So in the Southwest Ohio theme park space, we've talked a little bit about the competitors of Kings Island before, and that sort of a thing. But when you're doing a Halloween event, you're not only competing with theme parks and other entertainment centers for families, but you're competing with a lot of temporary, seasonal places. The
Mhm.
Dent Schoolhouses, I believe, coming on our show later on.
Yeah, Land of Illusion was another one that has been around for years and has a great reputation. And so that was the idea. We need to compete with them. We need to have our scare actors, on par with them. We need our mazes to be, up like that. We need people to go through the park in the scare zones. We want it to be this immersive experience that you come through the front gate, you're in it. And that's how it was the first couple of years. Now it got dialed back, we can get into that a little bit, but certainly dialed back on that. But it was one of those events that if you came into the park, nothing off limits. And that certainly was the way it was in 2007, 8, 9, and even into 2010.
Wow.
So, Don, in getting away from maybe the haunting at Kings Island, how many haunt events or Halloween events, family friendly or not, do you think that you've visited in the last 10 years?
Well, there's a lot of them. Holiday World, I think they do a great job with their event. Dollywood, it's not a scare fest at Dollywood, but they really do a good job with the storytelling, kind of telling that backstory of, where they're at in the mountains, the Appalachian area. Universal Orlando. I've been to Busch Gardens, Williamsburg for their event. I thought that was fantastic. Six Flags Great America in Chicago. Had a good time there. They were the first park that I experienced, between the Cedar Fair and the Six Flags, where you actually had to pay the upcharge to do the mazes. And I was on board with that because I thought it made it more of a premium experience the way they did that. Made the wait times a little more minimal. Obviously, Kings Island, Cedar Point, I think, when you're talking about a park that does the, kind of the dual events, trying to cater to everybody, guests of all ages. I don't think anybody does it better than Cedar Point. They have a fantastic daytime event, and then, it transitions into, the haunt experience at night or Halloween weekends events. So I've been there. I said already Dollywood, Hershey Park. So yeah, I mean, I've been around to a lot of different ones.
Are there any events you've been to that were just too scary? You thought, man, this is not even enjoyable. am going to have a nightmare tonight, and I cannot walk through the park without freaking out.
I haven't had that experience with it to where it was just too scary. I thought, Busch Gardens, Williamsburg, and they do it really well too. Like they keep the midways, they have the scare actors and that out there, but it's not like over the top intense, but their mazes are really good. But I would have to say Universal Orlando is probably the one that, definitely comes to mind because, they do a great job with the storytelling. You know the story before you go in the maze. And the people they hire to be the scare actors, they play those roles very well. So I would say that one's the one that, hits that spot that you're talking about.
Don, in your mind, and keep in mind that you have to gear this towards a lot of the regional parks because not everybody has professional actors like Universal that can bring these actors out and do the professional scare tactics, we'll call it. In your mind, what are essential elements to having a good Halloween themed event?
Well, I think when you're talking about that, you need to have, three kind of components. It needs to have, the storytelling has to be there for it. I think that's important with the mazes. What's the backstory? You don't want to just go in and it's just a bunch of kids, saying boo at you, and you got a bunch of, plywood up and it's just got blood splattered all over it. I think you need to have a really good sense of storytelling with it. I think you need the right atmosphere. I think that's very important with the atmosphere. What does the decor look like? Do you have a touch of fog to kind of add to it? Do you have that spooky environment at night? Is it, family friendly with the decor and everything during the day? So I think all of those kind of things play into it. And then I think the entertainment is a big piece of it too. What kind of shows do you have? Whether it's daytime, nighttime, does it appeal to guests of all ages during the day? Is it more geared toward the adult audience at night? Do you have anything going on, around the park, that is entertainment based? So I think those are the kind of elements that really, you really need to have those combinations to have a top tier event.
Yeah. And I think when a lot of people think of the Halloween event, your mind immediately goes to the mazes, right? To the houses. That's in some ways the crown jewel of a lot of these events. But as far as attractions, entertainment, things to do wise, you look at your mazes and you look at your shows. Those are the primary things. What else can parks do that can still fit in with this horror theme to keep people entertained as they're walking throughout the parks?
Well, I think little surprises that happens. Let's take Kings Island. In the last couple of years, they've done a good job. With all the lighting and the pyro and those kind of things on International Street. Somebody's walking down unsuspecting, and all of a sudden you just get these big bursts of flames, coming out of the fountain. I think things like that are those little touches that really add to the event when they do that. You mentioned this. The mazes are always one of the big things for me, though. I always felt that the scare zones, how it was set up around the park when you were walking around. I thought, that set the tone. That was the atmosphere. And then, oh yeah, by the way, we've got mazes. So the mazes weren't the priority for me. I could, do a Halloween event and not go through a maze
Huh?
and still have a great time just because of the atmosphere and, what they had out roaming around the park. I felt that's really what made the event. If they were all just hidden in 4 or 5 houses, and there wasn't a whole lot going on at night, I think it wouldn't be that same kind of level of an event for a lot of parks if they did it that way.
Don, I got a question for you now. Now, place yourself in a situation where you're going to go anywhere in the United States, in the lower 48, or in Hawaii or Alaska, I guess, or Canada, I guess, if you were going to go that far. But you're going on a 4-park haunt, scare, whatever trip this fall. Your name is Cleet Reinberger, and you're going to go for the Mount Rushmore of Halloween themed events to go to. What are the 4?
And Don,
Well,
before you answer, I will say I might have to actually do this if it sounds
That's why I
compelling enough.
mentioned
So
your
no
name.
pressure, no
well,
pressure. But
I think you want to get. I'm going to say you want to get the best of both worlds, kind of a thing. All right.
okay,
So the trip you're going to make, you definitely want to do Universal Orlando. That's a can't miss in my book. I think you got to do Knott's Berry Farm,
got
the
That's a
granddaddy
layup.
of them.
He lives in Orlando.
Well, you still
That's a
got to go
layup.
there. Okay.
Okay.
But I think that for a different type of an event, more of a just kind of capture the spirit of the season type of a thing. If you got a family, I think you got to go to Dollywood, Holiday World. Let's go. Okay, so we don't want to go out west, right? So we just want to stay close to your
No,
thing.
anywhere,
So
anywhere. No,
okay,
no,
yeah. So
anywhere. I mean,
Knott's.
just
Okay,
the
so
four.
Knott's. Yeah. Go Knott's.
it's fleet.
Berry
Money is no
Farm.
object.
Yeah, not Scary Farm. Go to there. Go to Universal Orlando, and then do a couple of the ones that cater to more of the families. Do Dollywood and do Holiday World. Those would be the 4.
Okay,
So you get the best of both worlds. You get the fun by day, fright by night kind of an experience at all of those, and in different ways. And Holiday World still does. There's still some things at night. For the adults, they've got the drone show this year. They're incorporating dinosaurs, so that
Mhm.
becomes it's a pretty immersive event. That's another thing. You want it to be immersive. Dollywood, with the decor and everything, very polished. They've got the seasonal food and all those kind of different things you want to try. But you capture the spirit of the season, when you're at Dollywood. And then, of course, if you're in for the scares, those are the 2 you got to go to, with Universal Orlando and Knott's Berry Farm.
boom.
So
You're gonna put some
now,
miles on your car doing that, or some airfare in that. But you will
Get
come
your
out of that
miles up.
feeling that you basically captured the full spectrum if you go to those 4 parks in the fall.
Yeah.
Well, Don, what parks are you going to hit this year?
Well, certainly, Kings Island. I'd like to hit Cedar Point for their Halloween weekends. Dollywood, I'm going to hit that. Holiday World for their event. So those are the ones for sure. And I'm hoping to get to Kennywood.
Okay. Okay.
That's
Kennywood,
4.
is that a scare event at Kennywood, or do they
It
do
is.
a?
It is.
Okay,
Yeah,
no,
it's a
The
little. That's
Phantom
one of the
Polka.
concerns. That's one of the things. When they were acquired by Hirsch, and are we going to? One of the things the employees there had, are we going to be dialing it back, changing the event? But so far
yeah.
they haven't. But that's a pretty good one too. And that park at night, if you think the Scooby Doo cartoons when they were always in like a haunted, amusement park, theme park, that park at night is kind of creepy. So I think that kind of adds to the experience there too.
Cool.
Yeah, there's a Hershey Park that has a Halloween, like not a maybe it's not quite a haunt themed event, but it's one that's not completely family friendly. I thought there was one park that I can't, it's escaping me who that is, or
Yeah, I
maybe I'm
can't
just
think
making
of it
that up.
right now either, but I think you're right that there is one. But yeah, I think Kennywood's kind of one of those underrated ones. I want to do that one. And like I said, it's one of those parks that I think it lends itself at night. If you're there with that kind
Yeah,
of an atmosphere, that I think you'd
absolutely.
walk out of there saying this was pretty good.
So
But
allow
Don,
me
no,
to.
oh, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
No, go
I was
ahead.
going to change the subject. So if you can go ahead, I
I
can go
was
after.
too. So you go first.
Okay. So let's take it back to Kings Island just for a second. You did mention the decision to like dial back Halloween Haunt a little bit later. What went into that? What and like why did the park make that decision? But also, if you never went to the pre-dialed back version, what might those differences have looked like materially?
Well, I think one of the main reasons was that it was still a lot of families coming to the event.
Yeah.
And then they were complaining and everything about it. When you look at what Kings Island, it has been, is now, it's always going to be, families are going to comprise the majority of your season pass holders. So it was one of those things, the new the no boo necklaces, came out, about 5, 6, 7 years ago, and that kind of changed the experience too. I'm not a fan of that. If you're going to an event like Halloween Haunt, I think you're in it. You have to deal with it, but that's
Mhm.
not how the families feel. They feel they should be protected a little bit. So sometimes you're going through a scare zone, and 5 feet from you, there's somebody with a no boo necklace, so the scare actor backs off, from you, and that. So I think that kind of impacts the event a little bit. But I just think it was because of, really that's who was coming to the park. You would still see the 4, 5, 6 year olds coming into Halloween Haunt and everything. And so it just made sense. And I think it was the right decision for them to make because, when you look at the majority of their pass holders, it's families on that. If you see the haunt today, it's pretty much more what Fear Fest was. It's got some, some good things to it. But for the most part, it's just a fun night out. You don't really leave that event talking about any particular maze probably, anymore, just like you did Fear Fest, but you just remember you had a good time. So that's where it's at right now there. And I think that was the right decision. Now they do have a couple of, new mazes this year. One of them, the Conjuring, the upcharge attraction. Hopefully that's pretty good. That should be a really good one. And that will change the, that's one they would talk about, when you left. Hopefully that's what happens there. But for the most part, I think it's it's all not 100% a family event, but it leans toward that now.
Yeah,
I
when
will
we
say
go to the
quickly,
park,
go ahead, dude. Go ahead.
no, go ahead.
Uh,
I'm sorry, my internet is causing that issue.
it's all good.
Now, when we would
I
go
will.
to the park, full disclosure, my wife is not a scare person. So when we go to the park, it's kind of begrudgingly just to go and walk around. Now, growing up, I saw every horror movie that came out, everything from Salem's Lot to the Friday the 13th series, Michael Myers, Halloween, whatever the thing was, I'd watch it. I don't think she watched any of that stuff. And so when you go walk around, the scare actors are around there, but really it's more or less a glorified boo, which
Right.
isn't scary, but it startles you. And every haunt actor that walks around, they pick my wife out because as one of our friends told her one time, the problem is you look scared. And so
Yes.
they, here comes this lady's low hanging fruit. We're going to go up and scare this person, and I get scared startled by proxy, which we don't go into the mazes, we don't go into the trails. She would never go for that anyway. And some of the things I've gone to before, yeah, they say it startles you, it kind of scares you. So I would never wait in line for one. But yeah, that's neither here nor there. But that's about the extent of our experience going to the haunt events. Unless you're going to stay on the subject, I had something I wanted to pivot to. But were you going to stay on
Oh
this?
yeah, I was just gonna say, I do
Okay.
think as like CHCA or Cincinnati high school students in general, like visit Halloween Haunt with much more frequency than they visit Kings Island in the summer.
Oh, for
Um,
sure.
so that is like, I would go with my friends who wanted to only go during haunt, and because usually the roller coaster lines were a little shorter because the haunted houses, kind of pulled them away. But it is like, you see you're driving past Kings Island on 71 and you see the fog from haunt. Generally under that fog, you're going to see more cars than you would
Yeah.
see on a standard summer day as well. So they're doing something right for sure.
Yeah, those Saturdays, in the fall at Kings Island are the busiest, days of the year.
Yeah.
Columbus, weekend. That is the one Saturday to stay away. That has historically been, the most crowded day of the year at Kings Island. So don't go that day in October. When I think it's a Saturday and second Saturday in October, I think it is. You want to stay away. I remember, helping park cars, and we were parking them down by the Sunoco, down there, when you first come off Kings Island Drive, in the grass and everything. So we couldn't get another car into the place, hardly. So those are the days you want to avoid. But, I think what we realized too, when I was working at Kings Island, everything was focused on haunt those first couple of years there, was that, there were a lot of families, the kids needed a Halloween party too. And that's where, you had the development of some of the different variations of the daytime event that they have now called Tricks and Treats. They do a good job with that. But one of the other things too that I think makes a great Halloween event is, for the foodie fans, you get those different menu items that are only available in the fall at different places, whether it's Universal, Dollywood, Holiday World, Kings Island, Cedar Point. I think that really, adds to the experience too. And you want to have those things that are the Instagrammable moments, whether it's photos with a scare actor, a lot of people take photos of the food, that's great for the parks. They have these ambassadors that are posting, about the events for them on Instagram, Facebook, and X, and making little things on TikTok about it and stuff. So I think that really adds to the experience too. If you have those kind of moments, you have to have the right decor, you have to have the right kind of food, and you have to have the right scare actors out roaming around the park that are willing to pose for those photos.
Yeah.
Don, I have a real quick question. We're going to be up against the clock here a little bit, but if you can do a quick synopsis or snapshot of a number of years ago, I think it was, and you can correct me, 2009 or 10, somewhere in that neighborhood, the park you worked at, Kings Island, was featured, and you by proxy was featured on a show called Ghost Hunters, which I was addicted to that show back in the time. I have a tattoo sweatshirt, but that I wear like 3 days a year. But how did that come about, and what was that like?
Well, with Ghost Hunters, when I first got there were several of the full-time staff that came to me and said, you should try to get Ghost Hunters here, and they would try to explain their, paranormal, experiences that they thought they were having at the park and that, so I thought, yeah, I mean, that would be kind of fun. That's your job. You're trying to get on these different shows, whether it's Travel Channel and, so Ghost Hunters was right up there. And, and I thought the Scooby-Doo episodes again, all the scary things in the park, this is perfect for them. So I wrote to them for 3 straight years, wrote letters and email, and never heard back from anybody. And then the year I didn't, all of a sudden, as we were getting closer to fall, I did hear from them. They said, hey, we got your stuff, and we've evaluated it, and we'd love to come out and check out the park and see if we could do this. And everybody was on board at the park, that to have them out. It was going to be a 4-night, 4 or 5 night type shoot where the park had to be completely empty. So it was after daily operation ended when they could come out and do this. And they were very professional crew. They told you what they were going to do, and they did exactly what they were going to do. They didn't get into anything they shouldn't have. And, it really was a good episode for the park.
What did they end up flushing out? Did they prove or disprove anything?
They disproved that there was any kind of ghost or paranormal activity down by Whitewater Canyon, because the associates and that were always saying that, that rocks were getting thrown or something, and they were hearing these noises around there. And what they discovered that was these acorns falling from the trees, hitting the tin roof of the observation, where people would watch, the associates would watch from those observation areas, that it was just, acorns not falling from the tree. So they debunked that there was any kind of activity around Whitewater Canyon, but they did feel that there was something up in the International Restaurant, and they felt that there was something that was over, as you got it in what is now called Adventure Port, over in that area.
Would that be the girl in the blue dress, or is that out in the parking lot?
That's out in the parking lot with her. And then occasionally people claimed that she had, come into the park. I'll give you 2 quick things about her. One is there was a guy that worked there for years in different departments, and one of his jobs was driving the tram. And he had taken everybody out, toward the north parking lot, and was on his way back toward the front gate. And right near the cemetery that they have up there, he heard a voice, and they said, "This is my stop, Ed." And he looked up in the rearview mirror, and he saw this little girl in a blue dress. And then he did a double take, and the girl was gone. So that was one. And
oh wow,
so he told me that story.
I've never heard that one.
Yeah. So that was that one. And then there was the time that I was doing one of these things with the media, like Thursday Child type things. They had their different people with them and that. And they wanted to get a group shot of everybody, and they were by the crypt building underneath the drop of Diamondback. And as they're trying to get everybody rounded up, the photographer, video guy, he says, is the girl there in the right in the blue dress, is she part of this group? And I looked over and I was like, I don't see a girl in the blue dress. He goes, oh, that's okay, she's gone. So that was the only other time that I've had any kind of that was the closest I had to anything like that. I didn't see her, but he did, I guess so.
Huh. Is that episode out there? If we could find the link to post that, is that episode out there somewhere?
I'll find it.
It's definitely out there. I think it's on YouTube, but it's something that's it's accessible. You can find it.
Okay.
I guess every 4 or 5 months somebody sends me a text message or message me on Facebook, and I say, hey, I'm watching Ghost Hunters right now, and you're on. Love your purple shirt. I've never seen it. I've never watched it.
Oh, you never watched it? Well,
no, I never watched things.
I never go back and I never go back and listen to our podcast. So, full disclosure, I hear it live. That's good enough for me.
Yeah, same thing. That's me. I'm like, been there, done that. Got the T-shirt. Next, what's next? Kind of a thing. But no, I've never watched it. People tell me it was interesting.
Well, Don, thanks for coming on. Kicked us off on this. We're looking forward to all the interviews we have going. We could actually go back and do didn't even think about that. The haunted stories that you may know from Kings Island and other parks.
We can do that.
Come across those. That would be, maybe we'll have to do that if someone bails on us in October sometime. Not that it happens, but it does.
Yeah.
But Don, thanks for coming on. We appreciate it.
Yeah, great to talk with both of you guys.
All right.